Hello everybody and welcome. It is finally good news to the current owners of Ford Ecoboost engines, specifically the ones with the 1 liter engines, because Ford has just launched an Ecoboost wet belt goodwill support scheme. And we're going through the process that Ford has just launched, and it will start to benefit some of the current Ecoboost owners. Ford has been aware that there is a widespread coverage on social media and also on the normal media about the issues with the EcoBoost engines, specifically here in the UK. So they decided to finally pull their finger out and do something about it. But it sounds a little bit too little too late, and as we'll find out alongside the video, they don't seem to admit liability or even that there was something seriously wrong with the consumption of the engine. Now, which engines are covered by this new support scheme? Well, according to Ford, it's only the EcoBoost Fox Classic engines, the 1 liter, I think 100 and 125 horsepower, that have the wet belt and that were produced before 2019. I think it was at that point in 2019 that the engines were made with a chain-driven mechanism and therefore less prone to failure, at least when it comes to the timing. But Ford still adamant that the EcoBoost technology is perfect because they say on the letter sent to the dealerships, and I quote, Ford is confident in the robustness and reliability of its EcoBoost engine technology when the stated guidelines for maintenance and service are followed. So, there has been too many horror stories about customers have catastrophic engine failures, not just only by the timing belt, but also by the gas pipe. And also there seems to be some new issues when it comes to the head gasket uh, just blowing up, and the vehicle also having head gasket failures. But there has also been some success stories, and I can speak for myself. My wife's car has been very good so far. It's about 78,000 miles, and it has had a wet belt replacement last year when the car reached 10 years old. So it's been as good as gold for us, but there has been far too many failure stories in order to warrant that, to say that anything is good with this engine. But let's go through the terms of conditions that are subject to this goodwill support scheme from Ford. We have heard a lot of reports about a North America recall, also with the EcoBoost engines, but Ford has made a clarification, a point on that. And they did say, and I quote, there has been online comments and confusion about the EcoBoost recall in North America. To clarify, the recall announced for North America in early 2024 relates to vehicles powered by 1-liter EcoBoost engines produced with an automatic transmission. The recall doesn't apply to European vehicles because they are not the same. Key hardware differences between the regions have led to a unique issue with North America but not Europe. I really would like to know what are the key hardware differences between the engines for Europe and the engines for North America. And we also know there has been cars with a power shift transmission that has been absolutely rubbish, failing not just only cars with EcoBoost engines, but then on diesel cars, Mondeos, and so on. It has been pretty rubbish. So the problem is not really with the EcoBoost engines, but also with the power shift transmission. Also, Ford makes another point regarding the transit vehicles, which are also equipped with a wet belt. So they do say that with a transit wet belt service schedule change, it has changed from 10 years or 150,000 miles to 6 years or 100,000 miles. That's quite a bit of a cut because, as you see in all the engines from Ford, it's usually 100,000 miles or 10 years. My old Focus, that is now for sale, by the way, link at the bottom, it does have a interval for changing the timing belt at 100,000 miles and or 10 years. So it's quite curious that Ford with the transit vehicles is also changing, it's slashing quite a fair amount the service schedule. And also, they do make a point that the Transit 2-liter EcoBlue diesel engine is not engineered in the same way as the 1-liter EcoBoost Fox Classic engine, which all the cars produced between around 2012-13 up to 2019, 1-liter engine. They said that the Transit service interval for timing belt, tensioner and idlers has been reduced to 6 years or 100,000 miles from 10 years or 150,000 miles in order to address issues with the timing belt service life caused by engine oil dilution or vehicle operation conditions and usage. So here are the terms and conditions imposed by Ford in order to give a goodwill support. So Ford will provide a goodwill support to customers with an EcoBoost Fox engine Classic pre-2019, and the engine has to be manufactured up to 10 years old with a full service history and less than 150,000 miles. Provided that the below requirements are met, the engine concern only relating to air belt timing, so if it has any issues, the scheme will not support it. Vehicle cases up to 10 years old with a full service history and less than 150,000 miles driven. So the cars have to be less than 10 years old, which cars from 2014 onwards. But EcoBoost engines were installed in cars before 2014, so vehicles older than 10 years old are not covered. Also, Ford demands a full service history documentation in accordance with the vehicle service portfolio, which can be either from Ford authorized repairers, a mix of Ford and independent garages, or from independent garages. So before, Ford used to reject all the cases of cars that did not have a full Ford service history. Now they are including garages and independent garages and Ford authorized dealers, as long as the service was done according to the intervals established by Ford. But if you did the service on your own, then it's a case that your vehicle will not be covered. The service history documentation can be more or minus 3 months of due date. Basically, they will accept an interval of up to 3 months before or after the due date is due. For example, if your car was due a service in June and you decided to do in August, for example, then they will accept it. Before, they had very tight intervals where if the service was due a week or something like that, they would simply completely reject the cases. So they've relaxed those rules a bit. And also, and this is an interesting fact, do not need to provide a history of lubricants used in vehicle service. There has been a lot of talk about the wrong type of oil used. Could be the correct grade, but not necessarily specification oil being used on the surface of these EcoBoost engines, because a different specification could accelerate the wear of the timing belt. But Ford is not demanding what type of oil was used. And that's it. These are the terms and conditions that are imposed by Ford in order to give a support of 100% of the repair cost. But of course, there are many customers out there or vehicle owners that have bought second-hand without a full service history, or bought second-hand even already with a replacement engine that wasn't replaced by Ford themselves. Ford will not cover that because they cannot trace the service history of that engine itself. you do not deal with Ford directly. You speak to your dealership, and they will take the care of the case for you, and they will analyze everything, and then they will give their verdict. But what happens if you had an engine failure, massive at a loss, cars with finance and everything else, and then eventually you sold the car on? Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do. You're not the owner of the vehicle anymore, so therefore you're not liable for any type of compensation. Only if you are the current owner of the vehicle, the car history can be fully traced, and therefore Ford can support you in the repair cost. I also have been asking what does entitle that, repair cost. Is it a new engine? Is it the same engine is going to be rebuilt? And I have been told that Ford will actually, but this is unconfirmed news, that Ford will actually replace the engine on your car with a post 2019 engine. So that is a chain driven engine, which only makes sense. Why would put Ford with a Ford will put an engine with a wet belt that basically is constantly failing? And probably they probably run out all of them of all the wet belt engines because they had to replace so many of them. I think they just couldn't keep up with replenishing the stock. So, what about you, owners of Ford vehicles with a 1 liter EcoBoost engine that are over 10 years old? Well, my advice is there's nothing you can do. If your car has had a replacement engine, make sure that the timing belt has been replaced, and just really hope for the best, and just to keep on top of the maintenance of those engines. That's the only thing you can do. You cannot go back to the dealership and then claim some compensation if anything has gone wrong. Unfortunately, I am one of those. My wife's car is a 2013 car, so it's already outside the requirements that are covered by this scheme. So yeah, that's it. I thought I would share the news to my viewers who own cars with these engines, because I think this needs to be widespread, to contact your dealerships and see what else can you get. Unfortunately, so many people have lost out on cars, thousands of pounds, with an engine that has been absolutely terrible. But unfortunately, Ford is not alone when it comes to wet belt technology. I spoke with a mechanic that did the timing belt change on my new Renault Scenic, and he did say that other manufacturers also use wet belt technology, such as Peugeot, and quite a few engines are starting to fail due to wet belt technology. And I'm wondering if we won't hear more news about it. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.